Input lag. That's the gap between when you say move your wheel, hit the accelerator or press a button on a controller and see that change reflected on your monitor. I have covered input lag before when testing the 120Hz mode of GT7, and in that video I explained how sim racers are less affected by input lag than say first-person shooter gamers, but it's still important. That was just one game though, and just on the PlayStation 5. What's the input lag situation like on your favourite PC sim? Let's find out. Before we dive straight into the results though, I'm gonna have to tell you about how I'm testing, because that's not exactly straightforward. The first step is just getting a measure of latency itself, and there's a myriad of software tools to do this, but they are measuring primarily GPU to CPU lag, and may or may not work correctly depending on the PC configuration, game engine, and lots of individual stuff. I'm far more interested in end-to-end testing, from controller input to movement on your screen. And this is where this thing comes in. This is an 8BitDo Ultimate 2 wireless. The cool thing about this controller is that it lights up when an input is activated. That light gives me an exact time of input, and when I see something change on the screen, that gives me an exact time of output. So when I film at 960 frames per second, I can count the individual frames between the controller light and screen movement, giving me this final equation: 1000 milliseconds divided by 960 times frames between input and output. But this isn't the end of the story. Frame rate matters too. On PS5, the frame rate is either 60 or 120 frames per second, which means there is either a 16.6 milliseconds or at best 8.3 milliseconds of lag between frames, without taking anything else into consideration. This is great on console where everyone's going to get the same FPS, but what's the story on PC? What's the frame rate of a PC game? I thought of locking games to a set limit, like 60 FPS, but then how do I even achieve that? There are many different methods of capping frame rate, and all of them impact input lag, sometimes giving one game an advantage over another. Plus, that's not even how I play. Usually when setting up any game, I max out all of the things, then turn them down till I always get at least 60 FPS. In practice this means some games I'm running maxed out and some I'm running with much lower settings. In older, easier to run games, I might leave PC power on the table, and this will always lead to better input lag than if my PC was struggling. But that's just reality. This is all a long-winded way of saying that I'm not going to be changing my settings for this test. I want to see the input lag in each game that I would actually experience myself. Don't take this as something that you would get. That would be all down to your wheel, your PC, your game settings, and your particular screen. What I am showing here is just the relative difference between games as they are played in the real world. For anyone curious, my current sim rig is an 8700K, 32 gigs of RAM and a 7900 XTX, all running on Windows 10 output to an LG CX OLED TV. With the 8BitDo controller giving up to 5 milliseconds of latency per button press, and my TV providing up to another 7, things external to the game are adding up to 12 milliseconds of lag before the game is even run. So with all that in mind, it's time to start testing. Which went well. Look, check this out. The little light on the controller is coming on after the friggin' game is outputting the result of that button press. Explain that one, 8BitDo. So I can't use the light then, which is a shame, because it would have allowed me to be exact with the timings. But now I just have to choose some arbitrary frame where I think the button is being triggered, which means I might be out a few frames here and there. Let's kick off this testing again then with a game I've been meaning to check out for a while now. It's Pista Motorsport. This sim can barely be called a game at this stage. It's still under development by what I'm going to assume is one guy in his mum's basement. So far it's all good though. The lag is coming in at a super quick 35 to 41 milliseconds. Next up we have the game that did so well that Microsoft laid off the entire team, if the rumors are to be believed. This is Forza Motorsport, and honestly its lag is pretty impressive at 32 to 38 milliseconds. For some reason I have a soft spot for this game. It's not great right now, but it feels like given enough time it could be. It's Rev To Vertex of course, and has a little bit of work to do on input lag with a minimum of 65 and a max of 92. They can get to that after they fix the physics, and the graphics, and the sounds, and the AI, and the content. I've always wondered where all that subscription and DLC money goes when looking at iRacing. I mean, it's certainly not the graphics, right? But it might just be the game engine itself, because this game is fast and smooth. With a low of 25 milliseconds and a high of just 34, we may as well crown the champion right here. Just like Forza Motorsport, this is another game that came in hot with a lot of hype, but ran like crap at launch. Maybe it's thanks to the sheer raster power of my 7900 XTX, but Assetto Corsa EVO is now not a slideshow anymore. But holy crap, take a look at these numbers. I had to do a double take, and yeah, 96 milliseconds was the best measurement I got, with spikes up to 150. This game is still in development, so it's got time, but let's hope they use that time to fix this. Rennsport. I still don't quite know what to make of this game. It's yet another game I checked out when I first went public, and planned to come back to, but never really did. For the input lag though, it's producing a could be better 76 to 81 milliseconds. If there's one thing that I really love about LeMans Ultimate, it's these slick menu transitions. It just feels so polished. Except for when you go out and play and the lag jumps from fine to unacceptable. I was seeing 69 milliseconds when, on my own, spiking out to a whopping 133 milliseconds when close to the pack. But I might need to cut the game some slack. I mean, few games if any juggle the huge volumes of cars on track at once that LMU does. Automobilista 2 is one of those fan favourites that you want to wear a flame suit if you're gonna say something bad about it. It's a good thing that I'm seeing decent numbers here with a minimum of 42 milliseconds and a max of just 50. It's now time for our final contestant. This is Assetto Corsa Competizione. With the AC Evo numbers, I was wondering what I would find here. But it's fine. You know, not amazing, but it's fine. A low of 55 and a max of 60 milliseconds might be double the input lag of iRacing, but I'm also seeing double the eye candy, so, you know, I'll take it. That result got me thinking about AC Evo again. I mean, these are the same devs. How did they double their input lag? But I did have trouble just getting AC Evo to simply run, so I figured before I publicly slander this game as having the worst input lag in sim racing, I better check that it's not just my PC causing the issue. So I ran it on this. This janky contraption with temporary power connectors that have been in place for over 6 months now is my main PC. It's a 13700K feeding an RTX 5080. It's a different CPU, different GPU, and even a different OS, with this machine running Windows 11 versus my sim rig running Windows 10. And to make doubly sure, I am using my Hall Effect gaming keyboard instead of the controller to trigger the input. This keyboard sends a keystroke the moment the key starts to be pressed and has an insane sub-millisecond response time. This test has the fastest of absolutely everything, so let's see those numbers. 104 to 125 milliseconds. Well, AC Evo, I tried. Here is the final chart. There are a few games missing, I'll admit. Some games I just could not get to work with my test controller, other games I just could not see a good input trace on the screen without any mods, which would invalidate the test. So if you want to know why I didn't test game X, well, you know, I probably booted it up. Then there was a bit of swearing and I decided not to include it. iRacing is deserving of props here. Those are true esports numbers. I hate on iRacing a lot, but they do get the sporting aspect of it all quite right. The big surprise for me is Forza Motorsport. I actually like the feeling of the cars in Forza. It's something about the FFB that resonates with me, especially the ABS under braking. But I was thinking I would have to say, well, I don't care. It may have, 350 milliseconds of input lag, but I like it anyway, shut up. But here we are, and it's actually the second fastest of all in the test. LeMans Ultimate does have some concerning input lag at times, but again, with those massive packs of cars, the CPU must be taken a hammering. AC Evo is the game with no excuses at all though. It doesn't have a massive grid, and it comes from a very experienced and well-funded developer. It's not the end of the world though, even if the games with large numbers don't get patched. Most of the time in sim racing we aren't reacting like first-person shooter players need to, we are predicting. A lot of input lag can just feel like soft suspension or less grippy tires. You can mentally adjust as long as the lag itself is consistent. The one area this isn't quite true though is saving a spin. This is when we do react, and in those times, being a few milliseconds quicker on the counter steer might just make the difference.